Hi, I'm Ann.
Hi, I'm Hannah.
Hi, I'm Kayla.
Hi, I'm Holly.
Hi, I'm Marie, and we are coming to you live from Austin, Texas, because it's
Happy Woolly Wednesday!
Hey guys, happy Wednesday! Hey, this is our last Woolly Wednesday in our current space.
That's so crazy.
The work is just beginning. On top of everyone's regular work, they're packing furiously, but we're super excited. Are you guys excited?
Yes,
Oh,
yeah.
I'm excited.
So tell us somebody tell us one thing about today you're working on.
We've been packing lots of orders, us two, today.
Yeah, lots of orders. Just kind of shuffling stuff around, trying to get organized.
The truth is, the magnitude is so great, they're grasping how to explain how much
a lot of stuff.
But hey, we're so glad you're here with us today because we're going to finish needle felting our naked mushrooms and we're going to make needle felted fairy house toadstools. So we're going to get right started. Thanks for being here, guys. Thank you for being here, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We are Living Felt based in Texas. You probably see some of our friends from around the world saying hi and where they're from, and I hope you will too. We're based in Texas, but we ship all over the world. And for those of you who aren't familiar with us, welcome. This is our live show. We like to do it on Wednesdays. They are saved in the videos folder under our Facebook page here on Living Felt. We generally upload them to YouTube, so if you're watching the YouTube playback, we hope you'll hit subscribe and get notified every time we go live. And if you're watching on Facebook, you can hit that little bell up at the corner of the chat window and get notified every time we go live. This is our last Woolly Wednesday broadcast here in our current space. Some of you know, and thank you for the outpouring of love that you've given us over the last day or so. We announced that we are beginning procedures for moving. We haven't shared any details about our new space because we want to tell everybody all at the same time, and I promise we will. And we're expecting a couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks transition, and we'll let you know when we're going to do our next show. So who's with us, Ann?
We have got Maureen in Oregon.
Hi, Maureen. Just give me a couple.
Karen in Texas.
Hi, Karen. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're on about a 25-second delay, so let me tell you what's going to happen. We are needle felting a tutorial today, and we often do a tutorial, sometimes wet felting, sometimes needle felting. And we want you to participate, ask questions, maybe chime in if you have an idea or something you've done that works also. And for everybody who participates in the conversation, your name will go into Ann's Magic Bowl, and we'll draw names at the end for prize giveaways. That's always our favorite part. So we hope that you'll stick around, watch the show, and for everybody who's already posted your naked mushrooms, man, it's been so fun to see. I'm going to show you just a couple of things. So last week we showed everyone how to make just basically an under shroom or a naked mushroom without any detail. And I really appreciated seeing that some of you embraced that challenge and just took your time to make a really solid foundation for your mushroom. The goal or the purpose of that was really multifold. And one is to get you to slow down, not worry about posting or showing anything online, especially a finished project, but to just do it for yourself. Refine your skills a little bit, learn how to make something really firm and potentially even really smooth. And I've been really impressed with some of the things that I've seen online, because this is all about having fun and making a good product as well, or as good as you want to make. So today we're going to build on our naked mushrooms, and I shared a post earlier online. This is my little fairy house toadstool that I made since last week, and this was made from one of the naked mushrooms that we had on the set last time. And I'm going to show you how to make this one and a few different renditions that you might consider making your own. You don't have to have the gills, but you can. And you don't even have to turn it into a little fairy house if you don't want to. That's just kind of how I was feeling. So we're going to turn down the cameras here in just a moment and start working on our mushrooms together. So everyone, let us know how that looks. This is the Fairy House toadstool that I shared online earlier. This is using the same supplies that we began with, which is our CW1 core wool and our MC1 batting, plus a couple of other embellishment fibers. Now we weighed this, and all built he weighs under 2 ounces, like 1.6. Well, this guy, who's really big and stout, weighs almost 3 ounces, I think. So that kind of gives you a size difference. And this one is very firm, and this one is fairly firm also. So if your pieces are dense, then they're gonna weigh more, of course. And these are the fibers I used on this mushroom for the top, and then our MC1 batting kind of made the door, and some little locks I have embellished those as well. So this is our MC1 batting in mango. This is our saffron wool neps, which are just little felted bits of wool. And then I used a hand-dyed silk hanky, but I'm going to show you using our I didn't bring them. I'm going to show you using regular hankies on our other one as well. So hankies come in lots of colors, and if you want to mix colors, you can just cut up different colored ones to embellish the top. And I'll just hold this up close first to the live camera so you can see those details, and then I'll hold it up to the YouTube camera just so you can see what that looks like. And then the gills and the door. And y'all feel free to ask any questions on those if you want to. And I'm going to just park him kind of over here while we work. I'm going to make sure everyone can see him. So let's look at, I want to talk about how he was made around a naked mushroom and some different ways you can make your tops. This guy was made over just a little pancake like this. So this is a needle felted pancake, if you will. I just made a little disc, and then I put the dyed wool right on top. So let's do that. Let's just begin to do that. Or I could make the blue one. I'm go ahead and make another one like this gold one here. So how are we doing, Anne?
We're doing good. Linda asks, are the gills merino top?
I'm going to show you how to make the gills, so we will get to that, but they are not merino top. And I'm going to show you that whole thing when we get there. And also how you might consider having a real firm top in order to make the gills. So this is all you do. You take a little layer of MC1, and you want it, this is our MC1 wool batting, which is a domestic batting. Many of you are familiar with it already. We want enough that we can just lightly tuck it over the edge, and you don't want to see the white underneath unless that's already your goal. With the neps, and I'm going to add a little bit of, bamboo or tussa silk. Bamboo or tussa silk is a nice shiny fiber. It's blingy, and you might not normally think of needle felting it into something like this, but how I like to do it is just kind of put it on there. Just let it go where it wants to go, because as we needle felt it, it's going to get kind of crinkly. So you can put it wherever you want or don't want. And I think I might have used also some saffron tussa silk on this one, which is the same color as these neps. Wool neps are kind of difficult to wrangle. They kind of don't want to felt because they're actually already little felted bits. But I'm going to give you one method right now that you can look at for getting them to anchor down. I always put on more than I want so that I am not heartbroken when some don't stick. So don't really worry about that. There you go. Okay, now a hanky. Hankies are interesting beasts because they really are very difficult to pull off a stack. I think I have a stack here. Let me see. Here's a stack of a different color. This is a discontinued color, but when you buy silk hankies from us, this is how they come. I'm not going to use this color, but I want to show you. Silk hankies are cocoons that have been stretched over a square and by a human. They're going to degum the hankies first, and then they stretch them over a square sort of rig after they're unreeled. And this is what they look like. You get a whole big a whole bunch of them in a pack, and to separate them, basically you have to try and find just one, which can be a real challenge, even if you grab two, and then just pull them apart, just like that, and that'll give you one. Now they stretch really far. A couple of years ago, we had Kate Kaprowski here, and she and somebody stretched it all the way across the room. Well, I was mesmerized. I had never seen that happen before. And what you can do is, I like to maybe not use the whole thing on such a little pile like this. So let me get my tools here. What you can do is just cut some off and use a little bit so that you really stretch it out. So there's a piece of it.
And for our felting friends, what was the white circle on the bottom?
Oh, I'm so sorry. I should have covered that. This is just core wool. And let me show you how to do that. Thank you. Let me just back up for a second. What I want to encourage you to do, if you're going to make this guy, find something around the house to use like as just a starting shape. And this is pretty much exactly what I used. Use the core wool. I'm working with the roving. And I just pull off a bunch and kind of make a big square, or a square or a circle, whatever, more than you think you might need. Because as you needle felt it, it's going to flatten out and stretch out. So this is just like a guide of a size that I want. And I know it's going to be bigger than this because I'm expanding over it. So that's nothing more than just a real rough template. And then what I do is decide how big I want that shape to be. Can you see how that wool is bigger than the shape I'm going to needle felt? And then use whatever means you have, whatever tools you have, to just start getting it flat. You can use something like this clover punch tool and start flattening it out. I don't have my more aggressive tools here, but if you're really patient or you only have a single needle, you can just sit and poke and poke and poke and poke. Now I'm going all the way into the foam, but what we'll do after a time is peel it off and then work on this side. Once you start to get the middle compressed and flat, then you will turn the edges in and tear off what you don't want. So you can start coaxing these fibers in to make it a little more round, just like that. Like that's all you have to do. What you want are all the parts to be an even depth, so an even thickness. And if you feel any area is too thin, now's the time to patch on another little bit of wool. So make your piece, continue shaping it, needle felting all around it, and this is not all that dense. This probably weighs 1/4 of an ounce. You know, it's just a base on which to needle felt our color. You could use your color 100%, but we like to encourage you not to spend your dyed wool so heavily. It'd be better just to have, use your core wool because it's cheaper. And then I go around all the edges after I've turned these in and just poke these in.
Debbie asks, could you use pre-felt for this part as well?
So Debbie asked, could you use pre-felt? If you did, I would use like our PFX pre-felt, which is more towards this thickness and this density, because our PFM pre-felt is very thin, and I have some of that here with me, but it's very thin and lightweight and is not going to give you any density. Now, you don't have to use this underneath, and I brought a second piece to show you why. Depending on what you're going to make, you could just make your mushroom cap out of all MC1 batting, and this one is made completely out of MC1 batting. So it is fairly thin though, and I'm going to show you how I would use this one as opposed to how we use these two together. So you don't have to use a base, it just depends on your mushroom design, and hopefully today will give you just a few ideas to think through your own, mushroom caps and what you want to do with that. So continue making your base. If you're going to make like this exact mushroom that I've made here, this is how I made it. So I make a little base, and that's going to support our gill structure underneath, and this is just going to go right on top. So I'm gonna make my design loosely on top, and I'm gonna take my hankies and I'm gonna stretch a hanky right over those nets. And that is gonna help anchor them down. Now you can add the hanky now or a little bit later, but if you add it now, that will help anchor down those neps. And don't worry about stretching it too far over the edge, because some of that's going to get turned under. And this is the part where you probably just want to have patience. Needle felt this really nice and flat. Don't worry about these luxury fibers, being the hankies and the bamboo, getting veiny. That is really the magic of it. When you needle felt these bling fibers, they do get veiny, and that's why you might like to go for a lighter color as opposed to a darker color. If I put a dark green, it might not look so intentional. It might just look not correct. It might just look awkward. So lighter colors seem to add like a sheen and a shimmer, whereas a dark color may not look so beautiful. And I could be wrong on that. Dark on dark would work, but a dark on light doesn't blend quite as well.
And Wendy asks, if you were going to be creating a new top for the mushroom anyway, was there any need to make a nice firm naked mushroom top?
Oh, yes, and I'll show you why. Because I've made it without, and this allows you. So Wendy asked, do you need to make sort of the undercap? If you're going to be making a dyed or a colored top like this, do you need to make this? And this gives you a foundation on which to shape your cap. And I'm going to show you a couple of other things. So I meant to mention, and I didn't bring our little mushroom. I thought he was still in here, but you could make a mushroom like this and just apply your wool right on top. And since we're going to be needle felting design on, you would see how to do that anyway. But making these caps separate is how I made mine, and having this undercap really does support the shape. So you don't have to, but that's how I made these.
Our felting friends want to know if how well the silk hanky will hold up being needle felted. Like, well, is it going to help the net stay on?
Yep.
Is it super loose?
It's going to add, I'm going to be able to needle felt that, just completely integrate it with the shape. So I'm starting with right now I'm working with a 38 star needle, and then I will sit and just, as you all know, hear me say, nerd out with my fine needle and poke this thing until it is nice and firm and compressed. So what you can do is start to turn this under or not. You could just turn it under a little bit or a lot, whatever you feel like, because we're going to be putting the gills on underneath. So mushroom anatomy, this is the cap. Sometimes the gills are exposed and sometimes they're not. What's that little collar called when before the gills are exposed? It's like a ring. I think it's called the ring. So sometimes when you see the gills, you see the ring on the mushroom. Yeah, but not always. So if you have a little thin bit here, then just use this. You just want your edges covered. And look, there's so many mushrooms you can study. So these are fantasy mushrooms, kind of like our fantasy owls last year, right? Not trying to emulate anything other than the fairy houses that were in the village where I was growing up. I mean, this is pretty much like the house I grew up in. How about you, Anne? What color was your roof?
What color was my roof?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, I'm blinking.
You are not.
Yeah.
Because you Okay. So the thing with this stage is to take your time, because the hankies want to stick to anything they touch, and you do want to needle felt them onto the cap so that they really stay on. And I just wanted to show you how I made this one, which is pretty much like that. The only difference is that I spent a lot of time needle felting all of this down. And if you don't love it or you want to anchor anything down a little bit more, you can always take this thin little bit, I'll show you right here on the foam, of wool and lay it, just stretch it right over anything that you want to be a little more muted. And hey, you can add another color if you want to make it a little more ruddy and a little more brown or a little more white or, you know, whatever, or a little more green, whatever those colors are, you can add them in layers that are honestly this thin. Just tiny bits. And that's kind of the magic of the MC1 batting, is how tiny, what tiny little bits you can pull off and blend into things.
And a couple of our felting friends want to know if these mushrooms would hold up to living outside.
No, they wouldn't. I mean, this one that was on the table behind me, and I showed this last week. We kept it on a covered porch, not in any rain. The sun will definitely leach the dye out of the fibers, and you don't want them to get damp and absorb moisture. So if you have something that's been wet felted, it's firm to really tight skin, and no matter how much you needle felt this, I would say, you know, wool does absorb moisture. So you could put them out, but if they get rained on, then I can't imagine how they would turn out. Over time, they would get soggy, I think, because they would absorb that moisture. So this is how I made this cap. And I would keep needle felting it until it's nice and flat and smooth. But what you can do is, once you get all this part needle felted how you want, you can rough up this middle bit under here just a little by pulling the wool apart. That's because we want to attach it to this. We want to attach it to our undershroom. And let me show you what I did on this one. On this one, for this one, I cut the mushroom. I cut this part so that I could flare it out a little bit. Now before I do that, and I'm happy to, let me jump to this other cap that I made just so I can show you a few caps, then we'll put our gills on, and then we'll kind of build our little fairy door, maybe on another one. How's that sound? Give us a thumbs up if you think that will work for you. And let me show you how I made the blue cap. This is the blue cap, and this blue cap, this is the reason to have that sort of under shape, is now we can needle felt the blue cap to this under cap, and you can shape it just about any way you want. Now, I haven't finished this base or wrapped it with cotton so that it's nice and firm, but if you make it, you don't have to put gills on this one, or you could think about how you might like to do that, to put gills on him. You could needle felt him, you could make this under part more conical and shape this more conical as well, so that everything is kind of going down. You can needle felt this to that, or you can let it sort of flare out like a great big sombrero, and play with that shape. What does everybody think?
Oh, just a flood of thumbs up.
Oh, we like this? Okay, all right. Now, this is very similar to how I made the big one behind me, and I want to show you one other idea for those who prefer to wet felt. So consider this is kind of like the pancake. This is like a thin little pancake. This is not as thin as a crepe, but this is a larger pancake. And then the other option, especially if you like to wet felt, might be to go more the pita route. And I've saved this just for this reason. And this is a hollow pocket, if you will. We wet felted this with our friends a couple of years back now, in our simple wet felting a pumpkin felt along. So this is from the flat wet felting a pumpkin felt along, which is more like making little gourds. And this is wet felted over a resist. So what you can do is make these shapes, and I've waited until now to do this. And I am going to cut this hole a little bit bigger so that we can put them on this guy. Or you know what you can do is probably just cut one or two. I'll just try and cut side to side. I'm going to see if I can just cut this a little bit bigger and put them on my cap. There he goes. Okay. So now that, and like I said, he's not standing because I haven't finished him. I haven't flattened out the bottom very much, but that would be a really cute mushroom, and you can add the gills or no gills as you want. And man, you can make these any colors. You can wet felt all manner of bling into them. So whether you like to needle felt or wet felt, you can have a wide variety of little toadstools, even if you don't turn them into a fairy house. So 2 pancakes and a pita, if you will, and you could needle felt a pita also. And here's what you would do. Instead of attaching these two all the way through like I did just now, you would make a white pancake with your core wool, and then you would only needle felt it around the rim to attach, so that you can cut a hole and do the same thing we did here. And that's what I did with the big mushroom behind me. It doesn't have any gills. And what happens is this needle felted way is a little floppy, so you might look at adding your gills on first. But we're gonna add gills to this. So does that make sense? Am I losing anybody? No, Ann says we're good. Okay, so y'all ask any questions, but here's what we'll do. Why don't we just make this guy that I'm showing right here, the same golden one that I've been working on, and let's get him attached. Even though, honestly, he definitely needs more needle felting. This is how I did him. I cut the under cap just so that I could flare it out. 3 places, I think, is what I did. Now, I could have made him more flat, but I hadn't, and this is how I modified that. So this gives me, I can sort of flatten him out a little bit and flare him out a little bit more. And I'm going to needle felt my cap right onto him. And all I want is it mostly attached. So you can go 2 ways. Use your coarse needles for this. Use your 36 triangles, which are pink, or your 32 triangles, which are blue, if you buy your needles from us. I'm going to use the 36, and the first thing I'm going to do is just start going from this direction. I'm going to get it where I want it and keep it where I want it. And I'm going along the edge, but I'm also going like towards the middle. I'm not worried about the core wool coming through to the other side. You can deal with that in your design. If the inside was black, well, that might be a different story. And then I'm going to needle felt this down. And this takes time. Okay, so needle felting your cap to your mushroom takes time, and you're going to want to fuss with it and shape it. And you're going to have to needle felt it not just on the edges, but all the way around. Any questions, Anne? I know Anne is like feverishly answering some of your questions as you ask them, and she's really good at that. So this is kind of how we're trending, and it takes a little time to do. Yeah, go ahead.
Let's see, Patricia says, wow, cutting it to make it more flexible, that's a great tip. Lorian shared, I never thought mushrooms could be so exciting.
Yeah, and cut it, if you need to cut it more to flare it out, then definitely do. But it still gives you a nice foundation on which to build. And mostly it depends on how, I want to say conical you want your cap to be. I wanted mine to be a little more flat. In order for it to be a little more flat, I need the under cap to match. And yeah, if I had had a little more foresight, I probably wouldn't have made it so rounded. But as often happens when I'm working on tutorials for you all, I get new ideas or new inspirations, so that's always fun. And besides, the more you do something, the more ideas you come up with as you do it. Now, by the way, I haven't covered this base in white yet, but I would. That would be my preference. You don't have to. You can keep it natural, like whatever's the core wool that you have. But this is how she goes. And keep working on this. I would needle felt your cap really well first, and then attach it all the way to your under cap until you're really happy. But if you needle felt your cap pretty well first, then you don't have to worry about any bits that are loose like mine is currently. That's the only thing that would drive me crazy if it was so loose that every time I touched it, it wanted to stick to my fingers, which you'll notice that the silk hankies do. So needle felt your cap really well and then attach it to your under cap. And I've given you these few other cap ideas. The only other thing that is different that I haven't shown you is this more rainbow one, which is, you know, all I did was blend the MC1. But the only difference is I made a purple pancake, and then instead of stretching it out and letting it, you know, just be all, you know, sombrero-like, I turned the edges under and needle felted them underneath the part of the cap. And that made this really dense yet smaller sombrero shape. It does look like a sombrero, doesn't it? Like a little rainbow sombrero. So let's look at how we do the gills, and maybe we just start doing them on this guy. We won't have time to finish. If you've watched our, we have a simple needle felting tutorial on YouTube for making small mushrooms, and in that one I make a simple twisted fiber out of our wool. This is not the gills we're making today, but I just want to show you one of the things I do is tease out the batting almost like you're making a yarn, and you twist it so that you get kind of an over twisted yarn happening. I usually anchor that down after I get it started. This is just the sort of quick, what you'll see more of if you go visit that YouTube tutorial. I start that, and then you gotta always twist the same direction. You kind of draft this out and twist, twist, twist until you get an over twist. And you'll see what I mean here in just 1 second. So this is gonna be the 30-second flash demo. You twist, 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 until when you release tension on the fiber, it would kind of kink in on itself. Does everyone see that? Does it show up? Okay, so what I do with that is I make this, and then you have to kind of make just little lengths at a time because it wants to untwist. You can needle felt this on underneath as just sort of a whimsical kind of gill. So you let it over twist on itself and then twist back, and you just needle felt that down. They're not like real gills like the ones you see on my current one. It just makes like a little yarn that you can needle felt back and forth. So with that said, you could also use yarns. We have this nice 100% wool yarn. You can needle felt that in strips or back and forth. You might have some fun thick and thin yarn that you could use, and you could needle felt these back and forth. You could use locks underneath if you want and needle felt those on as gills. And something that I really want to try, I was thinking of making like a ratty mushroom using like lace, like tattered lace. I think that would make really fun gills. But I want to show you how I made these gills, and it's so easy you're just gonna laugh. Maybe you have some of this stuff. This is our wool pre-felt. This is our PFM. But today, our PFM pre-felt, which is 100% merino wool pre-felt. This is lofty and lightweight and wet felts beautifully and very easy. But this is a different weight of pre-felt, which we're gonna have in the shop soon. And we're gonna include actually in a little mushroom bundle that we hope to have online by the end of day tomorrow. This is a little bit lighter weight. It is a little bit more felted than our PFM. You can't pull it into 2 layers like this stuff. Our PFM pre-felt, you could split apart into layers and it's really wispy and barely felted. But this stuff is a little more felted, and it's actually a long fiber merino, whereas the other is short. So this is all I did, and it takes a little patience, but it's really kind of fun. You just find the length that you need from here to here and make it a little longer than you need. I'll make a little strip if you want to get her done. You got to do this while you're watching or listening to something that's really entertaining. I told the girls I've been binge watching old Harry Potter. Well, not like there's a new Harry Potter. It's all Harry Potter. Good for making toadstools, Harry Potter. And then I'm cutting about, I want to say this is about 1/2 inch strips. And let's just see if my length works. This is, yeah.
Linda asks, are the gills felted a lot or just in places to lightly anchor them?
I'm going to show you right now. So this is what I have, right? These little strips of pre-felt, and hey, you can make your own pre-felt. And what I do now on your mushroom history, or your mushroom investigations, your mushroom anatomy, sometimes the gills only go underneath the cap, and sometimes they come down and meet the base of the mushroom. There's a great big variety, so just make whichever ones you like. And you might decide whether you want a little bit of rim of your mushroom showing or not showing. So this actually looks a little bit long, and I'm going to cut it off and make it shorter. And all I did around this whole mushroom was put this down and needle felt the middle. Needle felt right in the middle of this fold. And do that 800 times. No, I don't know. I don't know how long it took. It took a little time. So let's see. I'll cut this one too. I cut them too wide. So you just keep making your little folds and needle felt in the folds. So put the one right next to the other. Now, hey, on some mushrooms, you'll see like one goes the whole length of the underside of the cap and one just fills in the middle. I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if you keep doing this around the whole thing, I think you'll see. Let me cut these real fast. We'll do these last pieces.
I'm going to zoom in.
Anne's going to zoom in. Okay. Okay, so we're taking this piece, we're just going to put it right down on there and needle felt in the middle. Just nudge it right up next to the other one that you had. Needle felt it right in the middle. And don't worry about if it's funky or a little wonky. You can just nudge it over, and even if you need to, needle felt this underneath part. But all I'm doing is needle felt in the middle to make all these gills. And look, if it starts to get, since you're going in a circle and you're working with something straight and it starts to get a little, so that it's all swooping to one side, then just skip a little space. And I would do this especially after I got going a little bit. You can just skip a little space and then come back and fill that in with one of your shorter bits. And just go right in the middle. And then you're just going to kind of scooch them all together. And afterwards I went around on this one, and I'll show you up close now. I went around and needle felted all those little ends down underneath the cap. So here I needle felted all those little ends down, and then I put in a little dark brown trim just because I wanted it to feel like it had depth. That's just a design choice. I have no idea if real mushrooms look like that at all. So this is just a series of all of those little pre-felt strips cut and needle felted into place. You can make your own. If you want a wet felt, it'd be a little bit easier, but just lightly felt it so that it needle felts really well. If you needle felt it too hard or too thick, it won't work very well. So I would, if you're going to wet felt it yourself, just make it super thin. You can use our MC1, you can use the short fiber batch, you can use merino top, but make it thin and make it lightly felted so that it's easy to cut and easy to needle felt. And just work your way all the way around. And hey, this ended up adding a lot of density and a lot of structure underneath that cap. So that was really a fun discovery as well, like how much dimension and support all that little gill structure underneath gave it.
A couple of our felting friends want to know, how long did it take you to do all the gills?
I finished most of the gills in an evening. I think I just came back and did a few more and finished the door and stuff. But that's me. An evening for me at this point, y'all, is like sometimes I have an hour to needle felt. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. So when I say an evening, that's what I mean, because I don't have much time to sit and needle felt right now.
A couple
Yes.
of our felting friends are asking if the new pre-felt will be available in colors.
Oh, you know what? Not till later this summer. We're definitely looking at that, and that would be later this summer. It's an interesting thing. It does wet felt differently than our other pre-felt. It's thinner, but it makes a really nice soft pre-felt as well. Some people like it for wearables. So yes, we'll be bringing it in colors, but we have other goodies we're going to bring in too, but it's probably going to be closer to, I want to say August and September before we can branch out, because we need to get settled in our new place. But it is absolutely our plan. So what do you want to do? We have a few minutes left. Do we go ahead and do the door and maybe the chimney and stuff?
Wonderful.
How does everyone feel?
While we're waiting for comments back, Patty asks, would that method for doing gills work if you didn't cut the felt? If you didn't cut the felt, folded it like a
ribbon.
fan,
Yeah.
and then beautiful down.
So Patty asked, what happens if you just ribbon fold it? Which is actually what I started doing, Patty. I started ribbon folding it. And so she means, would it work if you just did this? And the only reason I didn't do that is because, so if you just kind of went like this and fan folded it, I felt like it was actually using more of the pre-felt than I needed to, for whatever reason, and I decided I liked those cut edges. But absolutely, you know what, this whole process, and the reason I didn't want y'all to rush is because I wanted you to take your time with your naked mushroom and just think about your mushroom, not my mushroom, or maybe yes, another inspiration mushroom. But I hope you guys will just have fun with the fantasy mushroom idea and do whatever you're inspired to do. And this is what she's talking about. Yes, this would work too, and you just have to work your way around. And I started that way, and then actually I went in and cut the first 2 ribbons, and then just decided it was easier to apply the individual strips. So that's where I ended up.
Yes, we want to see how to make the door.
Okay, so how to make the door and stuff. We're going to do that, and I just covered this first with our cotton white, which is very similar to the core wool. It's usually just a little bit whiter. Actually, sometimes our core wool pushes towards the white, but the cotton is a slightly finer grade. So I did cover my base with the white first and get that all smooth. So decide what color you want your door to be. I think I went with willow on mine, and y'all will see we have, I don't know, 17 earth tones or some big number like that. And I just wing it. So decide how big you want your door to be and get your batting off. You can just kind of put it on there and think, how big will my door be? I'm gonna make this one. Oh, I want to make it big, but our time says make it small. So on things like this, I don't really fuss too much. I'm just going to stick it on there where I think I want my door to be.
Sorry, y'all, I'm zooming out.
Oh, sorry, we're too close now. Anne's like feeling seasick. Okay, so once I know kind of where I want my door to be, then I'm just going to go around and needle felt in, whether you want an arch or you want a straight door, whatever it is. I'm not stretching it too thin because I don't want any white areas, but I'm just needle felting in a little arched doorway. And here your door can be just any color you want. I'm using my finest needle, which leaves like the fewest needle marks. I will often do this on the finishing stage. And even like on my caps, I spent so much time with just a single yellow needle to needle felt that down. And to get a real clean line, once you know where it is, then you can just fold these fibers back over if that's what you want to do. You could use a template or you could trace it out first, but this is kind of how I go about it. So then I'm felting upside down, so forgive any roughness on that.
A couple of our felting friends want to know if you find that the gills or adding a large top makes the mushroom too top heavy to stand evenly.
I don't know. I mean, mine's standing fine, but I would say just work out that balance, you know, and if it's not working, then you have time to add to the base if you don't put your door in already. So I initially, you know, like this has a great big base and this would hold, you know, bigger, but it's not, you're going to have more weight here. Now you could, and I'll keep needle felting while I talk, you could weight the bottom. You could even cut the bottom open and put a little rock in there if you want to. I plan to mount mine to a little grassy area, and we're not going to have time to do that today. and we're not coming back next week, so that answers that question. But so I would say you could mount it if you want to onto something, or you could weight the bottom, or you could just make it bigger. So this is kind of what I do with the door, is I just start dragging a darker fiber or whatever color fiber you want up. If you wanted to have like wood planks, maybe you're doing like a high fairy door and yours is going to be purple or gold and more regal. I'm more of the woodland fairy realm. So this is all I do to get the plank effect, is just kind of drag this up. And look, it doesn't even have to be even. You know, the more uniform you make it, then sometimes that makes it look a little less real. And fairy houses are very real, so you want to give it a little, maybe a little lived-in look or rustic look. So make it a little uneven, and you can even go back and add some light areas, or I think I put like, this is a little bit of caramel. If you want to add some other nuances to the door, or put a window in the door or something like that. Spread that out. So add a little character to your door as you want to. And what I didn't bring was, I meant to bring a little bead, maybe a bead or a little piece of old jewelry. And what you can do is give yourself a little doorknob. I have on my big one a little flower bead. Now you can trim your door with black or brown, or blend black and brown to give, you know, if you want a little more dimension around the edges. And I want to hurry so I can show you how to do the chimney too. Whoops. My phone's on D&D, so that means someone of high priority is messaging me. Sorry, y'all. I know people are panicking right now. Now, this looks a little rough because I'm upside down, and that's the only reason. For those who've felted with me for a while, you know that I just get super up close and personal with my pieces, and that means I'm gonna have it really like right up to my face. So let's make a couple of shapes real quick. Let's make the flower box over on the side, and let's make the chimney, because both of those are made in a very similar fashion. What do you got, Anne?
Let's see, well, some of our felting friends are already having Woolly Wednesday withdrawal symptoms.
Oh, we're gonna miss you guys too. Trust us that we love Woolly Wednesdays, but the moving crew needs us, because we are us. We are the moving crew. Okay, so I have cotton white here, and I have a skewer, and then I have like a wooden dowel. I don't know where you just get this at the craft store, the wooden dowel. I use the wooden dowel to make the chimney, and I use the skewer to make the little flower box. So I'm gonna pull off just a little bit of cotton white here. And let's make the flower box first. So anyone who's made dolls with me, you're gonna recognize this move right here, which is like a half roll. And just kind of go like this. We take our skewer, put it on top, and we're gonna fold. The skewer just gives you something to kind of fold against. And we're gonna make our flower box just about there. And I'm gonna flatten this out. You want it to have some dimension so that you can tuck your little flowers in there. You could do fun things with your flowers. You could use maybe a little Angelina or some locks or just more MC1. You could have some little strings. So notice I'm just going right into the top there. Make it nice and dense, but leave these edges unfelted. This doesn't need to be too long or too big. You just want to felt it enough that you can form a little shape on the side of your house like that, so you can tuck your flowers in. Use your fine needles or your 38 needles to attach this, and just go right into the unfelted areas. So if you use your fine needle, then the blending is going to look a little more seamless. And make yourself a nice little flower box. Now I would have needle felted mine a little bit more before attaching it, but I just want to show you how to do it. So if you're going to refine it a little bit or firm it up, do it before you attach it. But just remember to leave the edges and the bottom unfelted. So that's a flower box. You can tuck your little goodies inside there, just like this one. And that's barely, you know, I barely have any flowers in there, but let's make a chimney. What do you got, Anne?
Mostly folks are just posting about like how excited they are to try making theirs and like what they're gonna do with theirs.
Yeah.
Linda says little fiber fairies on top of the mushrooms would be cute.
Okay, here's how I made the little smokestack or the little chimney. It's very similar. You can take your fiber, whatever bit you have, fold one edge over so you have a little more of a clean edge to start, and leave the other one loose. And if you use a thicker dowel, then you have a little bit bigger of an opening, and this is, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. Use a spoon if you have one or whatever. This is going to be too long. So we want enough fiber to attach, but not so long that we have to pull it apart after it's felted. So I'm going to do that one more time. Now it's about 3 fingers wide. Fold it over. Start rolling it on your skewer. So again, I just use my thumb here, roll it over. And we want it to be, you want it to be thick enough that you can give it dimension, density when you needle felt. Sometimes when we're making small things, there's a propensity to not put enough wool. And then what happens is it doesn't have any strength and it stays flimsy. Pull off the balance that you don't need, just work its way around. Look, just when you're working with our batting, you're going to see how easily it just grabs onto itself, and you can dry felt it a little bit just like that with your fingers there. And then immediately, let's just needle felt first right into the top. Now, if you've seen our basic shapes needle felting video, if you're a beginner, if you already know how to needle felt, well, then I'm probably not teaching you anything new today. But if you have seen our basic shapes needle felting video, using the skewer or some kind of a dowel is something that I started doing when I first learned, and I still do it today. Leave this bottom part unfelted, and then while it's still on the skewer, I'm using my fine needle actually so that I don't make any big indentations. Just use this to compress the fiber and make it a little more dense. Leave the bottom part unfelted and work your way all the way around and from both directions. There's a tendency sometimes to needle felt only this direction straight through, but if you go up and down the length of something, you'll find that it's actually stronger than if you only needle felt straight in. You're bringing all of these fibers together and it compacts it a little bit more. So needle felt it from both directions while still leaving this part loose. Questions?
See, a couple of our felting friends are wanting to know what colors are used on the purple mushroom.
Okay, the purple mushroom is true violet, pomegranate, hot orange, and mango. Yep, I made some blends. So if you've seen like our needle felting a robin video, you know what, honestly, it didn't come out as great as I planned. That's just the truth. I had like this great vision for it and it didn't come out as great as I planned. So I kind of stopped working on it, which is kind of my MO. If I don't love something, sometimes I'll put it down or cover it up later. Anne's nodding. Yeah. Sure, Anne too. Okay, so look, we have like this little chimney, but we have this part is loose and wispy. And so that means we can just attach it right on here. Where's my door? And flower box on one side. I'll put the the smokestack on this side over here, and then you can just needle felt it straight down in. I'd probably condense it a little bit more, but here's a working mushroom. Now look, you could have made it purple. You didn't have to make it white, but I thought it would stick out a little bit more if I made it white. Do anything you want. Really, what we like to do on this show and as a company and in any of our tutorials is kind of hopefully provide some inspiration, 2, a little bit of guidance, and 3, remind you that there's no rules and just encourage you to play and have fun and explore, because we know you're brilliant. We know that you are infinitely creative, and we like just hanging out with you and making stuff. Definitely. Okay, so I'm just needle felting that down, and there's my little smokestack. So maybe I have some gray and we can call this guy. Do I have gray? Here's some gray. All kinds of gray you could use, or you could use, I don't know, I thought viscose or tussa silk or something in there would be cute too, but ask me something. What do you got?
a couple of our felting friends want to know how to attach it to a base.
Oh, okay. One thing I'll encourage you to do, so we're down to 5 minutes, but I'm going to show you, I'll show you using said lily pad here, pancake. We did a needle felting, a gnome tutorial last year, and I think it is in the November 7th version. November 7th, under our needle felting tutorials on YouTube, we needle felted a little gnome, which is like a big version of this, and we needle felted him to a base with rocks and such. And that was my plan, but with all we have going on, it's a little challenging to get it all done. So here's the direction you might start. Have your base, whether it's grass and rocks or whatever, sort of just get it basically mapped out, and then go from this direction and needle felt this into this. So that's the first thing I would do, and this isn't going to hurt anything. So use your coarsest needles and pretend this is an island. Here's what we have. This is our tropical island fairy toadstool. It's like an atoll. You know, an atoll is kind of like what, just like a mountaintop or volcano top just in the ocean. Yeah, this is like our fairy mushroom atoll. So we're just going straight into the bottom here, and you want to get a fairly good adhesion that way. And then you can build some little rocks, little stairs, I don't know, whatever, planter boxes or benches or whatever, to kind of help build up this little adhesion. So add flowers and grasses and stuff, and I would needle felt that more, but that's what you do, is go in from the bottom and attach it there, and just with a little bit of effort it's kind of sticking, and you can build your little platform. So you might put it in a box or a plate or a crate. I don't know, but these are our little fairy toadstool houses, whether you wet felt or needle felt your little caps. I can't wait to see what you make. And that's like all we have time for. I've made a mess in a matter of minutes. Fun. Okay, y'all, we're gonna turn up the cameras. And I tell you what, before we do, Anne's going to get everybody, because the fairies like to come and give away prizes. I'll just hold this up one more time for those who weren't here last week, and I'm hoping this is going to show because I can't see. This is the original fairy house toadstool that I made, and it was in a little wagon. It is actually hollow inside. And I'll turn it around, and then can you see on this side the little window flower box? So just play with that idea and make something of your own. We're gonna turn up. Have y'all guys just been hanging out under your toadstools all this time?
Oh yeah.
Waving your magic wands. Come on in, Anne. Go over there next to Hannah this time. We're gonna break it up.
There we go.
Alrighty, who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Shirley Sullivan.
Yay!
We have 2 choices and prizes today. Prize number 1, if you already have all the embellishment fiber to create a really fun mushroom top, you just need some fiber. We've got NC1 goodie bag and 4 ounces of core wool.
Yay. Cool.
Prize number 2, if you have all the fiber for your mushroom but need some shinies, embellishments. So we will send you some sari silk, some bamboo top, and some nets in your choice of colors.
Oh, fun. Cool. So, yeah, so just let us know if you want prize 1 or 2. Yeah, let's pick another name.
Holly.
I'll pick 3.
Debbie Reed.
Yay, Debbie! One more winner today.
You want to?
Next is Christina Iodice.
Awesome.
We know her. She's been here before. Y'all, thank you so much for felting with us today. We hope that you will take your time on your mushrooms, make them just how you want them, and share them in our group, which is here on Facebook. Just search for Living Felt Friends. We may have linked to it already. We'll post a link later, and we look forward to seeing them and hope to see you on YouTube too. So be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you guys in a few weeks in our new digs. Bye.
Bye.